Ask Reddit. What motivated you to learn languages? Moving to the country that speaks it. Boredom. Taught myself Finnish while during the MSN Messenger days as I had a Finnish friend, and this year I've been on and off learning Norwegian for the sake of it. No real reason really, I want to go there one day even though it is horrifically expensive, and that came from a bunch of Norwegian guys I met in Lanzarote. Languages are fascinating to me, and I'm envious of those who are bilingual. I also think many sound beautiful. I'm learning Swedish just for the sake of it, but have also studied Spanish and Russian to some extent. Honestly? The professor of the language. Freshman year of uni, my roommate and I were in line during orientation waiting to get in somewhere. On the wall were offerings for different foreign languages and we knew we had to choose one, which was probably going to be Spanish just for the credit requirements. At the bottom of the flyers was one for Chinese. We were young and honestly had nothing better to do, so we said frick it and enrolled for that semester. Turns out the professor, Lao Shi, was the greatest human being alive and taught Chinese in a way that was so understandable and easy to grasp. We committed and will be going to China next year for an extended student stay. My boyfriend is bilingual, his family speaks Spanish in the home and he has a Mian sister. I wanted to be able to tell if she's talking poop about me. My comprehension's at about 40% and I can speak basically enough to get through small transactions with Spanish speakers in a pinch. I'm ready to meet your family and pretend I don't know any Spanish, BB. I learned German after an Introduction to Languages course in middle school. I just liked the way it sounded, and how much fun it is to speak. I don't like being a typical stupid American who refuses to speak anything but English, so I'm learning Spanish. The high school credit that was attached to it. Lol. I'm a polyglot and I count language learning as one of my biggest hobbies. For me, it's my desire to be able to communicate with other people easily and effectively in a way everyone can be comfortable with while learning more about other cultures, traditions and ideas. Korean films and certain shows are so damn well made me want to learn the language so it becomes easier to gauge. Learning any language just opens up a whole new world of wordplay, humor and emotions that had been until that point completely unknown to me and so fascinating. Apart from Korean, which I am still learning, I know approximately 5 other languages, and want to learn more. A hot girl. The wanting to understand another perspective. So I could have more possibilities for jobs. Part of it is a really strong obsession with languages. I tend to get very passionate about something and pursue it near obsessively. The other reason is to disprove a stereotype. I am a white American who has traveled and lived in non-English speaking countries. I have been told by several people that white Americans are completely unmotivated to learn another language and expect everyone to just speak to them in English. I'm trying to dispel that stereotype by making an effort to learn another language. Being Norwegian is a good motivation to learn Norwegian. I wanted to be able to read literature in the original language and understand the nuances of the language. I find it fascinating. I like languages. Studying other languages helps me understand my own better, and helps me understand the meaning of words in general. It's absolutely fascinating to map out a root of a word from its root to 2 completely different uses in 2 separate languages, only to realize that if you simply understand the intention behind the choices different groups of people made about word use, you also understand their culture, their value set, and so much more. Word etymology and language groups are intensely fascinating to me. Video games, music, movies and anime. Wanting to really learn the cultures I'm interested in. I think it's impossible to really understand a foreign culture without being fully aware of the nuances in their language. Take Japan for example. There is so information about the people hidden in the way their language works. I don't speak Korean even though I am Korean. My grandparents barely speak any English and they're not getting any younger. One of my grandparents passed away earlier this year, and I realized I never really had a conversation with her. I want to be able to have a conversation with my grandparents before they pass. For poops and giggles, I'm on 7 now. It has become an addiction of sorts. I grew up in Southern California, so English was pretty obvious. Spanish was also a pretty logical choice, since I needed to interact with various Spanish-speaking people as well. My parents also wanted me to learn Hebrew for religious reasons, but my brain just didn't adapt well to having 3 languages at once, so I stopped taking Hebrew. When I was a teenager, my interests turned to computers, so I learned a poop ton of languages: BASIC, Assembly, COBOL, Fortran, Pascal, C, C++, and a bunch of shell languages. During college, I didn't have to take any foreign language courses because of the number of computer languages we needed to learn. After college, I emigrated from the US to Germany, so I had to learn German. Today I speak German and English fluently, along with a bit of Spanish, Italian, French and Japanese. I wanted to use the internet, mainly to read Pokémon fanfiction, also because Sailor Moon was only subtitled in English, so English had to happen. Travel. I love learning at least a few useful phrases so when I visit a country I'm not totally lost. My husband also learns their alphabet if possible. He did that for our trip to Korea, but may not be feasible for upcoming trip to Japan. School forced me to learn French, and after 2 years of 2 hours a week of French I haven't learned enough to order food and drinks at a restaurant. I was 5 and figured I'd flunk kindergarten if I didn't learn to speak. I spent some time in a foreign country and didn't want to end up like all the other expats who were constantly asking people if they spoke English and speaking the local language in halting tones with a terrible accent. More recently, I've started Duolingo and realized that learning Spanish is surprisingly easy. I am a Chinese Malaysian and schools here teach you Chinese, Malay and English. So yeah. Bella Ciao. When I was a teenager I was leaning toward becoming a professional translator. My mother, she just started to drive me to Mandarin classes when I was about 4 because she's from Malaysia. I went there for 6 years but stopped because it got too patriotic. Honestly, I really respect people that can speak multiple languages. I think it is a testament to dedication. I also am low-key jealous of bilingual people. In Poland you need to learn Polish and English in primary school. Then in secondary school you have to choose third language. I choose German. I always knew that English is super useful and will allow me to communicate with other people almost everywhere. My parents always told me that. I'm in high school now and I can say that English opened many gates for me. Listening to a band who speaks German, Rammstein. I started learning Latin some 4 years ago. People have always asked, why Latin? And legit, it's because I randomly picked up learning Latin from the Gutenberg collection, opened it and didn't up it down, because it felt like I was actually making progress and understanding poop. Also it had nice pictures. I found this video on YouTube where some streamer tries to learn Russian, which is my native language, in Duolingo. I thought that it looks pretty easy and decided to learn Spanish. Unfortunately now my family is being held hostage by the Green Owl, so that's that. Dora. My art manga addiction. My parents and teachers. People who speak other languages. Coding, programming. I've been playing video games and watching movies in English since I was like 5 or 6 years old, so I just naturally learned it as my second language. There was no real motivation or effort there, just a child's capability to pick information up. As for German, I had to learn it in school, which I can't say I was motivated for.